Hey guys, I decided to make another video, this time on Sword Art Online War of the Underworld. I once again sat through this basically one sitting, so I'm all finally watched the whole series, and I gotta say this is a good season. I think that some of the shit they did was great, other stuff, like, um, so I kind of want to bring up some things just in general, I guess, that I didn't like about this season. Um, Something that like bothered, like not bothered me, but like I felt like, well, okay, this is not really a bad thing. This is actually a good thing. When Asuna had her arc with with Yuki, and Kirito wasn't really in it, I kind of wasn't as invested. It was still a good story and I liked it, but they managed in this season to not basically have like no Kirito for the most part, and still make it a banger season, basically. And but I do think it took a little too long. Um, I understand like there's 24 episodes and all this shit, and he does get like there are a few more episodes with him when he gets out, but I just thought like it went on for a little too long. Like there was the point where everyone's like kind of glazing him. He's like, "Oh, he's this hero," and he is. Like I do fuck with him. Obviously, he saved a lot of people. He's helped a lot of people. So yes, he does deserve that like kind of hero status. But it was just like the glazing was to another level where I'm like, okay, now he better come back better than ever. Like it had to be that way because like the way that they were kept saying like, oh, he's gonna come back at in the time we need us most, and we need him most, and he'll save the day, and it was like okay, and then like villains I thought were gonna be like Kirito's main villains, like they switched around, and they also dealt with a lot of real world stuff. I mean, not a lot of real world stuff, but a good amount. Um, where they explain why these I don't know, terrorists or whatever are here and what they want. They want Alice because she's the first artificial AI to, I don't know, have free will or some shit. I forget exactly the terms they used. And of course, the U.S. government wants it, so it's like off the books. The U.S. government's a piece of shit. I was kind of like, damn, they really doing the government kind of dirty with this shit. But I mean, I don't know. But yeah, so getting into this really, like I said, it's mostly not with Kirito for the whole season. And there's 24 episodes. Last video I mentioned, oh, there's only 12. And I was wrong. I was looking at Ojo, the app, and it said, Alicization. It didn't say part one, but then I looked down and there was a part two. And I realized, like, yes, this has 22 episodes. Like, um, so it makes complete sense. Um, but yeah, like I said, he's not much in it, and they built up this world last season with characters that you like. So it's kind of like it feels even more like a different show. Um, and well, I don't know. I don't want to say that. Like Kirito is the connecting thread, right? And between seasons one and two to Alicization and all that shit. And I think that the way that they did it was pretty interesting, and but it felt like almost a completely different show except for Kirito. And then in this season we completely like he's out of the game, um which I thought what they did with him was really interesting, because I feel like what was weird about this about like how they ended it and how they begin it was at the end of Alicization, whatever, he he's reaching up towards Asuna when he's floating up, and then they never show that again. Like they never show like her reaching for him, and then he's in the catatonic state, and I kind of wish they didn't. Well, I don't know if they like. I don't know exactly how they explained it, but I was hoping that they would explain it like he got he got disconnected and his brain was like messed up from that, but they were saying, oh, it's because he lost who he was because Yukio died, and I don't know. It was interesting, and I liked what they did with him this season. Like once again, they didn't do that much with him, but I liked the idea of it, where, because I've said this previously, I wanted something where they have to save Kirito, but it felt like after a while, like they weren't really saving Kirito; they were saving the world, and obviously the world, they make you care and they make you like certain it's a real world. So I think like I've said before, it's hard for me to like care about like things that don't affect the real world. Um, but the way that they explain things in this, and also like how like when these characters die, they lose them forever. So it is like a real death because they're important to them. It's something important, so you don't want this shit to happen. That fits. And once again, you got characters that you like. You got Yukio, he's dead. Alice, Alice's sister. The person that trained Kirito at the Sword Academy, she's cool. The knight, the female knight, was pretty cool. Obviously, the commander of the, I forget what the fuck they're called. The knights was pretty cool. I liked all of them basically. I didn't completely fuck with Alice's apprentice or whatever. He was kind of just a bitch, and you know something I wrote down was he should have died in that explosion, and they shouldn't like him and Alice shouldn't have had a chance to talk. And I stick by that because it felt like that would have been an emotional punch. There was no need for her to be able to speak to him and be like, "Oh, I did it for you. I believe in you. Whatever, some shit." And it's like if he died like just with his actions, it would have been like that would have been it, like showing not telling. But then he has to tell anyway, and I just feel like that like weakened the death a little bit. But once again, I didn't really like the guy. He didn't deserve to die. Like I thought he was gonna actually try to kill Kirito or something, but that's not what ended up happening. And he was an okay guy. He was and like ended up being an okay guy, but I didn't particularly care about him. Um, so yeah, so there's like a lot of this episode, like this season feels like other shows. Like I forget if it's what it is, like shonen, like some Naruto type shit, where it's fights, like tons of fights, and they're building up to something. Like it reminds me also of Bleach when they have the war, um, except yeah, it's like because it's like one battle, but a lot of it. Well, actually, no, that is like Naruto. The Fourth Ninja War, um, but yeah, so I thought it was really interesting because once again, you care about these characters. You understand that they are alive. They are people. Not just AI. Like they have their own feelings. They have their own lives. They have all this stuff. So I think that building this entire world now, where there's stakes, where you care about the people and you also care about the world in general, right? And I think that they managed to do that in such a good way where now anything that happens in that universe, you're invested, right? And throughout this entire season, they just keep building up that. Because, like I said, Kirito's not super in it. And then there's some real world stuff. But Asuna's not in it for a while. And then, like, the other people aren't in it for a while. But when they do show up, it's cool as fuck. But it was like for a little bit, we didn't get that much of them. And then, Asuna jumps in the machine, but we don't see her for like 5-6 episodes after that, till 5-6 episodes after that. And I thought that like I said, it was like a completely different show, but last season really made you care about these characters, and they were fucked up and they had all this shit, but you at the end of the day discovered the knights, they weren't at fault, and they were mostly decent people. I can't think of one that was like a piece of shit. No, I can't think of one. Uh, but so it's like a completely different anime almost. But it is some it feels great. It feels like it's something new, but like in something old. And following Alice after she's freed, and I feel like she's a different Alice from the thing because she never got her memories back if I remember correctly. Because like her and Yu-Gi-Oh walked off into the sunset kind of shit, holding hands, and so I had no idea if the guy basically, sorry, I'm like looking at my notes a little bit, if the guy, if she got her memories back. It seemed like it was like when he said to Kirito, we're gonna fight, you're gonna fight to save the Knight Alice, and I'm gonna fight to get the original Alice back. And like I said in that video, it's so true. Like that's exactly what would happen. So I'm not sure how much of her memories are back, if any of them are back, if it's gone, and she's building new memories. So she's somewhat of a new person. She's got some things, but she's different. I don't know about that, but we follow her mostly, and her taking care of Kirito, and also they do a really good job of in the beginning when it's like Kirito fought for this like really hard. It was one of like they say like it's one of the most intense arcs. Like it says that literally, I think on the packaging or something, and it's somewhat true because some of the shit that goes down is like, like I said, because once again, there's blood, there's gore, there's all this shit, and they explain in the in the first episode when he goes into the world, it's like, oh shit, I feel this way more, like it feels exactly like the real world, or almost exactly or whatever, but so it was like they build that up for that season, and then they put aside Kirito, and they still can tell you a great story, and I really like. I don't want to suck the author off too much, like be like, oh, it's amazing, da 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 da. It is very good, like it is amazing, but I mean, like like, oh, it has no problems, it's perfect. Um, but yeah, like I said, that was just very well done, and I think I could see why a lot of people would be like, oh, I don't like this season because Kirito's not in it that much. But I think that it's all about whether you like Alice. It's all about whether you care about these characters from the season of Alicization. If you don't, you don't give a shit. Basically, for like 90% of the, well, I want to say like 70 because, like I said, there's that real world stuff and all that. So I could see people dropping off because of that. I think that's a mistake, but I could see it. Let me look at my notes here because now I'm like kind of going in circles. Yeah, they had the first episode was a recap episode, which I complained about last time, and it's like I could see like a when you watch a show and they do the cliff notes and they do all that, but it's like once again it's all them just talking about what happened, not talking, because I would have liked to see, like I said that before, I would have liked to seen that, like them actually having a conversation about what happened instead of showing it. Well, I mean, I guess they could show it, but they weren't having a conversation. They're just telling us, like they're so. And it's just a few voiceovers, like probably less than like I don't know. I don't know exactly what I'm trying to compare it to, but it's not that much. So it's mostly just old shit. And once again, I watched this in one sitting, so it's kind of like fuck. Like it's so like I wanted to skip the episode, but I couldn't because I have to like say I watched all the episodes, just to meet myself basically. But yeah, but I like that. Oh yeah. Also with Kirito, talking about that, they did him like they really showed in this season, and it because of last season and even the first season, his trauma, and they really kind of bring it to the forefront where like he's broken now. Like he has after losing Yu-Gi-Oh, which to us once again there's that 2 year time skip, and he knew them way and also I'm not 100% sure about if he remembers the childhood or not, because in this season he when at the end of it when Sugo is like, what was he like, tell me the story, and he's like, oh, I first met him when he was cutting the wood and that's how they meet in there, so I don't know. I feel like that's pretty confusing, but if they kept it with like he remembered the kid memories and stuff, it would have hit even harder, but it still did hit hard. But yeah, but you see that, and then he's broken, and like he's always reaching for Yu-Gi-Oh and his sword, and he's holding it, and then he tells like that those motherfuckers who took it from him, and he tips over in the chair, and he's just going like this. It's like, bro, like fuck, like this dude just broken, and you're like, somebody help him, right? And once again, Alice is like, she was great. She absolutely helped him, and and then when other people figure out what happened to him, like his disciple and Yu-Gi-Oh's disciple, they help him. But I just think that like I don't know, it's sad, and that's something I did kind of want, where I wanted them to have to save Kirito, but like I said, after like a little bit, it just starts to feel like, oh, we're saving the world. And Kirito takes a bit of a backseat, like even to that, where it's like they're like, oh, we're gonna save the world that Kirito loves, but then there are those moments where they reflect on why they are doing what they're doing, and what, like how they are the people they are today because of Kirito, which I really like. I like seeing like a lot of it is how he affected all the people, and how he's like this really special person who's able to bring people together and do all this shit, which he is. He's done a lot, and a lot of stuff is just so like I said, I kind of wanted to see them kind of having to step up to save him, and we do get that. Like I said, somewhat. Well, no, not somewhat. We do, but I just felt like at some points it was like, okay, we're just about the world now. Forget about Kirito. But then they would say like, da 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 Kirito, whatever. But yeah, so that is something I wanted because, like I said, he's always putting himself out there, and they mention that a lot of times. Like he's the one always suffering and always doing this stuff for other people, and like I just felt like I kind of felt it. Like I talked about the brain damage thing, but it was like also kind of. I like to think of it now. I just thought of this, so I kind of like to think of it of like he did break, like he just broke because of the Yu-Gi-Oh thing was just too much. Um, and I just felt like that was good. And you see, him once again, like he's always trying to help people. He's in the fucking wheelchair, and he's like, see, here's they mention, oh, he was trying to like get up to try to help you, and it's like damn, and he'll be reaching for the sword when somebody's like harassing him or whatever, and it's just like that's so built in. Like he's like super messed up. He can't do all this stuff, and you just like I don't know what the limit is to what he can do and what he can't do, but I don't know if he can't walk or he just like doesn't know how or what the exact thing. It's brain damage, so I feel like it's kind of like a um I don't know if there's like the scientific term, but like a vegetable type state. Uh, um, yeah, but that was something where it was like you even see that, and it's just like you feel so bad for him because he's a nice guy and he does his best, and just to kind of see him broken like that is hard. And when you see Asuna finally come in, which I just felt like took a long ass time. Like I saw this artwork, right? And I'm like, oh shit, they're gonna be in this season because last season they were very rarely in it. Like everyone was very rarely in it, except for in the first episode. But they were all, they all cared about Kirito basically, and so I'm like, okay, they're coming in, and I felt like that happened way towards the end, which is fine, because it felt like things were heating up. I feel like we should have had a bit more like evil villains in this, like where at first it's just like they make it clear that the orcs and all these people aren't bad guys, right? And there's that guy, I forget his name, but one of the captains or whatever, who's like, okay, I'll talk to this guy about having a truce. And then the guy, the real world villain guy, shows up and he like kills him. He kills his girlfriend and kills him, which it was damn, that shit was like, I felt bad for the guy. um at first when she was trying to seduce him to stab him, I thought that it was the witch lady. So I thought that up until like after when he killed her, I was like, oh, that's who that is. So um yeah, so that was something where it was like, okay, they're not bad guys. Like none of them are bad guys, right? And it kind of felt like like, okay, so they're being forced to do this, but they're all fighting and people are actually dying. This world, these people are real. People are dying and they're, on both sides, and they're not bad people. I mean, most of them, I guess. And they're just fighting for what they think they have to and following orders, basically. And I think that for the most part, it was a bit disappointing. Like I said, the two villains are fucking amazing in this season, especially the lieutenant guy, the second in command. I think he really stole the show towards the end. The guy, like the main guy, is like a fucking psychopath, and that shit was crazy when they show his backstory, and he killed this little girl because he wanted to see her soul and all that shit. And it was when he was a kid, and that's why he kills all these people. He's trying to like because he doesn't, basically it's like he doesn't have a soul. He doesn't have any, like, I guess, kind of feelings and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, so that was like good. But then when they reveal who the second guy is and how he was the leader of Laughing Coffin, that was something where I was like, okay, now it's connected to Sao again. Like it's kind of loosely connected, but it's not. Um, like I guess I don't know. It's further away from it. So it's like things move on, life, in life, so it's like you can't always bring it up, but when you do that, And especially when you like reveal, and this is like I don't know if like this was always planned or not. If it was always planned, this is fucking genius. But where he was like the one who leaked the plans, or where the base was, or no, he leaked the plans, of the guild, so that Kirito would have to fight them all, and like eventually kill them to fuck him up. So I was like, that was some Joker type shit, right? To get him to cross that line, and he did. I mean, that is the first time he killed someone. Was that, um, which we don't know until season two, but it was like I wanted to do this. I wanted to drag him down, all this shit, and you kind of see why, like where he's like he was amazing, he was this great guy. I forget exactly what he says, but like he has some sort of admiration for him, but then he also hates him. And I think partly, and I think I pretty like this is on purpose, that when they show his backstory, and it's like, by the way, his backstory is fucked up, doesn't excuse anything he did, but I felt a little bit bad for him. When you see that, but after everything he did, I'm kind of just like, fuck you, I really don't give a shit. But how his dad abandoned him, and his mother was like, oh, you're demon. I wish I never had you. I should have aborted you. I was like, damn, that shit's crazy. But, you know, and then his father comes up and he's like, oh, he's like, why are you trying to contact me? He's like, oh, because I have this other son who needs a kidney. Give me your kidney. And it was like, first of all, like the dude should have at least been like, I'll compensate you or something. Like that would have been. I tried to, because the guy's like, no, and he's like, okay, I won't take care of you and your mother, but they're like living in the slums, so it's like, give me some more money then. Like, I don't know, but basically, it kind of forces him to do it. But like, what I was trying to say was the guy looks like Kirito, the son who he gave the kidney to. Um, Looks like very much like Kirito, so I think that has an effect on it too. And I think that's on purpose. Like I don't know why otherwise he wouldn't look sorry, he would look that close. But oh, it also took me like fucking 15 episodes to find out that it says SAO Awakenings because Kirito has to, reawaken whatever. Um yeah. So we also had this really great moment. I'm jumping around, but that's what I always do. Um, Between Asuna and Alice and the people who knew Kirito in that in that world, and um, how they she's like, tell me the adventures of why they call him the dual Kirito, the wielding swordsman, or whatever they call him, which is like when they call him the Black Swordsman or some shit, that's cool. But when they call him like something something dual wielding Kirito, the dual wielder or some shit, it just doesn't hit as hard. Um, but I was just like, okay, tell me how he got that name. Tell me everything, and I'll tell you what happened. And I would like to see a bit more of like them talking about the situations and all that stuff. But it's okay, that's fine. Um, Liz's speech was pretty good when she's talking about how they'd have to convert to this new game, and how if their characters died in there they couldn't get them back, and these guys are all talking shit like, oh, you're just fucked up, you think like I don't know, like the guy was like an asshole basically, so it was like, okay, fuck you. But um I don't know, it just kind of it hit. And you have Klein and all them, and they're like, okay, we're going in, like that, is what I wanted, where they're like, yeah, I owe Kirito many times over, so let's do this. And like I said, that's kind of like the loyalty, and it's well deserved. I think in the show they've done enough where it's like, okay, yeah, like yeah, he deserves that kind of thing. um but yeah, so oh yeah, so I was like didn't really super care about most of the leaders of the evil gang, whatever, the demon, the dark side of the world type shit. Except for the main villain who's lieutenant or whatever, and then um I ended up really liking the pugilist. I really liked the love story that they threw in there, because like I've mentioned like 1,000 times, I absolutely love love. I love love stories, so I like when they had that shit in here. And I just thought like that was really well done. Where they end up like falling for each other and all that. And then the pig guy's what I know it's kind of fucked up because they call him human or whatever, and he's like an orc, right? But he looks like a pig, like exactly like a pig. So it's like, damn, that guy did not deserve it. Like his girlfriend, wife, friend, whatever. It seemed like there was some romantic stuff going on. Died for absolutely nothing, right? Because they sacrificed themselves to get the spirit energy or whatever it's called, and then, um, they used the blast, and the guy, Alice's apprentice immediately sucks that shit up. Yes, he dies, but like then no one else dies, and it's like, okay, you killed 3,000 people for fucking nothing, like. And once again, this pig guy's wife, girlfriend, whatever. So it was like he did not deserve that. He never really did anything super fucked up. And it turned out the orcs weren't that bad. Like, in the first season of Alicization, when they first kidnap, what's her name? Alice's sister, and they're like, gonna kidnap her, and I think they eat humans or something. I don't know. But then in this season, they kind of revealed they just want peace, and they want all that, and that's very rarely done in media. It's always like orcs are, either they're stupid and aggressive, whatever. Not all orcs, or like basically it seems like almost all, if not all, orcs are like that, and they're like bloodthirsty, rapist type people. That's shown, something like Goblin Slayer, which I haven't seen, but I kind of get what they're going for with that. Um, and some stuff like that. So that's basically what I thought, and so he didn't deserve that. And then the orcs, like, they ended up not being that bad. So you kind of like them. The only ones, like I said, that were really evil in the Dark Army who ended up like being pieces of shit were was that sorceress lady who I hated from day one. I'm like, great, we're having another fucking asshole female villain who's like trying to be all powerful and all this shit, and I'm like, oh, like again, dude, like. And once again, it wasn't that bad. She wasn't like the focus, but it was like one of those characters where you hate her, and it's like, I don't know. It wasn't one of those like you hate her, you want to see more of her. It was like you hate her, get the fuck away, and Alice basically kills her in like one thing. But then of course I knew she was alive because they tease like she sucks the life out of her sorceress apprentices, whatever the fuck they are, and then she survives. And something I want to mention going on with that was when they brought her back. For a while I was like, oh, maybe she's dead, because it was like a long time between when Alice kills her and when she returns. But something that almost made me want to like stop watching the show, not like completely, but just kind of like pause it, and then I feel like I would have had trouble picking it back up because of what it was the like kind of essay thing with Kirito's sister and the witch, the sorcerer and all the tentacles and shit. And it was like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? Like they just find a way to insert like this rape shit constantly, and it's like at this point it has to be like I don't know, someone's fetish or something, because it's too much. Like the tentacle stuff is just too much, and it's too rapey, and it's like, okay, if she was sucking the life force out of her, that's fine, whatever, even if she's using tentacles, that's fine. But it's like, of course they gotta rip her top off, and they gotta like go around her thighs and do all this shit. And it looked like one, like, I don't even know if this happened. I fucking hope not. It seemed like one fucking like straight up went for her vagina. Like it looked like they gave it a shot like that, but then you don't see it. Like, so I hope not. But it was just something where I'm like, I'm so fucking sick of this shit. Like I'm really tired of it. And I just want, can we get a season where we don't have some shit like that? Well, I think maybe season 2 we don't have anything like that, if I remember correctly. Yeah, but it's like it's just like unnecessary, and it's like once again, like almost every season there's a scene like that. And in the last season when they had like that that rapey scene, it made sense because Yu-Gi-Oh had saved those girls and broke out of the command thing, so that made sense, right? Because that was the thing that pushed him over the edge. But this was just like completely unnecessary, and she's like, oh, to the pig guy, get naked and bow before me, you're a pig. But like the whole like almost like a dom thing um with him. And then he kind of like is like, fuck you, tries to attack her, and then uh he doesn't do shit. I thought he was actually gonna kill her because it's like, damn, give this guy a little bit of a win. He lost his once again wife, girlfriend, whatever, and then it's like, he meets this person and they help him, a little bit, and then she's basically being like sexually assaulted right in front of his eyes, and Lifa was the one to suffer the most in I don't know, in the war at least, because they keep saying like no matter how much damage she takes she can't die, so they show her fighting all these people and she gets like stabbed in the eye, like a spear thrown through her. I don't even know if it went through the back of her head, but it was like, where you see her like eye like this, and it was like fuck, like, she just keeps fighting and fighting and fighting, and it was like that was the point where it's like for a while, like I feel like they went, that's what I mean when I say they took too long with Kirito, where it was like they kept jumping like between, it was like, okay, things are really bad, things are a bit better, and I'm like, okay, when are they gonna bring him in? And then they got to the point with, the laughing coffin guy, and oh, I want to mention this, the laughing coffin guy, and they bring in two characters I don't fucking know. I'm assuming they have to be from the movies or some shit. They bring in two characters. I'm like, there's no way they're gonna let this motherfucker like stop them. They got this fucking K-pop artist lady, uh, J-pop, I mean, and like, she's singing a song and it's making all the real world players not like as mad, and it's like fucking crazy. So basically it was like, it was like, where did these people come from? And he gets a few hits in, and then it's like, there's no way. I was literally sitting like, there's no way you're doing this. And then eventually he just gets his ass beaten, like, I don't know, dies or whatever happens to him. But I felt like that was absolutely ridiculous, where we have no idea who the fuck these people are, and they like, mention he was part of the Holy Knights and he did all this. So maybe he's in like the Asuna movie, whatever, where they have those from her perspective and they have more stories for her, which I'm thinking about watching. That sounds interesting, but I just felt like that was so terribly done. I think that's probably one of the worst parts of the season, just them doing that, because it just takes you out of it. It's like, who are these people? Where do they come from? What are their motivations? Why do they care about this? Um, and they had like, all the other people from the Yuki arc, and from Alfheim and all this shit. So it was like what I thought was gonna happen with the World Tree, where it was kind of like all the races kind of team up to help, and that's what they did in this. And they had some, it was really cool. You saw all them fight, you saw them, put it on the line, and it wasn't all for Kirito on that part, and I was fine with that, because it's like, they're talking about like, these are real people, like, trust me, this is like, and they've earned that trust, like, all these people, like, it's like, yeah, they're not gonna lie to you. So when they say, and real, like, it feels like I said, it feels like real people are dying, and they show that multiple times, like, even just when random no people you don't know are getting killed and Austin is kind of losing it, it makes you feel like, yeah, they're real, and they are real. It's just, once again, it's a little different, from the real world, but it took me a minute, but I got into it, and I was like, yeah, this feels, like, I don't mean I got into it before this season, somewhere in the beginning or somewhere. Well, I guess it didn't take me that long. Where it was like, okay, this world feels real, and these people, I care about them, and I don't want shit to happen to them. So, felt like there were stakes. So that's what I mean. So I thought that was cool. For a lot of them, just trying to help this world, and then a lot of them for Kirito, because he's helped them. Klein got his moment to shine in here. When he first appears and he kills a whole bunch of people, I wasn't sure who it was going to be because there's kind of a shadow, and then it was Klein. That was cool because we don't seem to get to kick ass much. Like, he's strong. He obviously is, like, he survived SAO, and he's fought like strong monsters and stuff, but we don't see much of that. So it was kind of like, I don't know, basically like, seeing that for the first time. Egil, whatever. He comes back like last season. He's in it barely. Like, he talks off screen. And it felt like in season 2 that was basically the same thing, where he'd be in the background but he wouldn't speak. They bring him in. He doesn't really. I don't think he has his moment though. But they at least bring him in and they acknowledge, like, like for Kirito and all that. So it was like, okay, like, they're giving everyone. Then they have Liz and fuck's her name? The girl, with with the little like dragon thing. I cannot remember her name. That's insane. Um, and like I said, they just bring the whole gang in, and it's like I don't know. It was good. That's basically it. That it was good seeing all these people come in, and and then they combine with the people that you care about in this world. So it's like okay, it like that was like where the moment where it was like okay, we're fully connected now. Like it wasn't just Kirito anymore. It was all these people fighting for this world and for Kirito, and it was like okay, this is it. And like I said before, it just goes on for too long. Where Kirito, like they keep defeating people, and I'm like, when is he gonna jump in? Who's gonna be left? Like when I said that guy, that random person, and the fucking singer comes in, it's like they almost defeat him. It seems like, and then Asuna has her moment, which by the way it makes sense. But I was like, I really didn't want Asuna to defeat the guy because it felt like he's talking all this shit about Kirito. Like, I want to drag him down to my level. I fucking hate him. I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna torture all of you until he, kill all these people until he wakes up. And it was basically just like Asuna, could defeat him for Kirito, I guess. But it just felt like it had to be Kirito. Like it should have been, and I wouldn't have minded if like each of them kind of had their own like smaller villain or whatever, something like that. I think that would have been cool. But like I said, they make most of the army not really super bad guys. Like yes, they're killing people, and then they bring in people from the real world who I guess aren't really evil either because they're being mind controlled by the fucking laughing coffin guy. And so they're not evil, and then they bring in two other characters. I forget who the fuck they are, but like one from China and one from Korea, and it was like, who are these people? Like it seemed like maybe we're supposed to know him from somewhere else or something. Because I know this writer does a ton of different like spin-offs. I've seen Excel World, and I've heard about Gun Gale Online, Alternative or whatever it's called. There's a ton of movies. There's a ton of light novels. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're from one of those. It's like in City Hunter Private Eye when the cat eyes appeared. So I think it was something like that because it was just weird how they came in and they knew, like they were like, okay, something's off here, and they believed her, the girl, when she's like, we're not fighting for this, like trust us please. So those guys weren't really evil, even though they did some fucked up shit. Like when they were attacking them, like it was like like I said, aggressive and just like like that, but they weren't truly evil. And that's what I want. Like I don't want the whole talk no jutsu type shit. I want this to be like, these are villains, there is no helping them. And that's what the two main guys were. And it was very, like I said, they're kind of in the background a little bit. And then Asuna almost defeats him. And then that's when Kirito wakes up because he and the guy, I forget his name, the guy with the glasses, ends up sending the parts that they remember, I guess, of Kirito into his soul, whatever, when it's broken, whatever. To help him remember who he is and all that shit. And that was cool when he came in and he like beat the guy's ass and he actually fucking turned him into a tree and killed him in the real world. I didn't expect that because it seemed like, okay, he's just gonna be like maybe frozen, kind of stuck in there, but not like he can't log out, but he's alive. But he's dead, and then so is the commander at the end when Kirito ends up killing him by sending him like the goodwill of the love and all this shit, respect and everything, from all the people in the world. And it was just like something where I wasn't expecting that when he kills him. But I just I would have liked to see Kirito, and we've seen this before, I guess, but I would have liked to see this because there was like a ton of guys, a ton of people. I would have liked to see him mowing through some people because the animation is fucking beautiful. It's beautiful every season. I don't like want to say like there was a dip in quality or anything, but it was fucking incredible. Some of these moves they were doing and all this shit. So I would have liked to see some more from Kirito with that. But like I said, like by the time he he comes in, it feels like almost everything is done. Oh, he comes in when we need him most. Kind of, like, not completely though. But he ends up coming in. He's OP now. He's got some more super fucking powers, and the way they bring him back was pretty cool. I was thinking that the episode Memories, I wrote down Memories is an awesome episode, but I ended up being disappointed with it because they show him like in his mind, and he's like, "There's something I should remember," and he's seeing people on like the train and all these places of like people and things that he should know, and I was like, okay, there's gonna be like an episode with this, like where something helps him in the world, and we kind of get that, and I thought that would have been really interesting. But then we switch to the main world, and it's like, him coming back was cool. I felt like they, once again, they showed how broken he was. I feel like I wish they kind of explored more with that, where it's like, because they're like it's about Yu-Gi-Oh, and I'm like, yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh was like, you cared about Yu-Gi-Oh. They did make you care. There's a ton of episodes with him. It made, you care about him. You like him. You don't want that to happen to him. But, it just felt like I felt like that should have been more portrayed as like that's the breaking point, right? And then it's not the only focus of what's going on. And then they kind of do that like at the, when he's looking at the screen, I guess, and he's like clawing his own heart out. That shit was insane. And then Yu-Gi-Oh comes back and he's like, I forgive you, whatever, like, which he wasn't at fault at all. And then it was like, keep, like, move, like, you have to get up, all this shit, all the stuff that they kind of normally say. I felt like, because it's like Asuna there, Suguha, whatever, his sister's there, and so is Sinon. They're all there. And so I was like, I kind of would have liked to see them drag him out of it. And they do, they help, but it's really Yu-Gi-Oh who pulls him out of it. And like I said, I do understand why his death hit way harder, because once again, they were in two years of that. And what we did see, they were really good friends and really good fighters, and they had great chemistry. But it's like we've seen these other people way more, and like I said, I mean, I guess, I don't know, maybe we saw them an equal amount, I don't know, but it was something where I was just like, Yu-Gi-Oh was a bit too much the focus. I feel like it should have, like I said, it should have just been the breaking point. Anyway, oh yeah, Kirito made it before killing he killed Alice's dragons, the villain, which I was like, well, maybe he did and he saved him, I don't know, but it was some shit where I was like, what the fuck, like, because that never happens. They always show up afterwards, like, it's, okay, they kill the dragons, then they're about to kill Alice or whatever to Alice, and then he jumps in, but he ended up making it in time for that. Oh, and the villain, the guy who, like, hates Kirito, whatever, he's just racist, like, he's just, like, racist against Japanese people. Okay, yeah, it was, yeah, so that was something. I'm trying to see. Oh, there was 2 recap episodes, I forgot. Yeah, it's, I was saying, like, just do a montage or something. We don't need a full episode. And I kept jumping back and forth, and I was wrong on if, I forget, the guy who hired Kirito was the first one to see him in the hospital, I forget his name, if he was involved or not, if he was evil or not, because they tease in the beginning where it's like, okay, he stole Kirito's body, he basically, kind of, I don't know, pressured him into going into GGO. So I was completely like, I thought he would have been a good villain, but I do kind of end up liking what they do with him, but it was still like a lot of like back and forth on my part. And I thought he was going to be the traitor. He wasn't, and it was actually that fucking tentacle guy from season 1, and he dies, which, I mean, yeah, it is season 1. And that was very satisfying. He shoots the lab guy, which I don't know if the lab guy's becoming somewhat of a villain or what's going on with him. I don't know what they plan to do with that. I mean, it has to continue. There's no way it doesn't. But I would have liked to see what's going on with that. I thought the idea to have Asuna and Kirito in the world for like 200 years, they're stuck there, was really cool. And like I said, I wouldn't mind seeing like something like a movie or something like that about that, because they get their memories erased of that time, because you would lose your mind basically, I guess. His memory would be full, and then the guy ended up stealing Kirito's memory, like the one who remembered the 200 years and all the shit that happened, so that he becomes that AI where he bring they show in the beginning of Alicization, when they show, oh, this guy's an AI, but he doesn't accept he's an AI, and he's not the real, like the original, and he's like losing his mind. But Kirito just like is like, yeah, I knew you were probably gonna do this, help me save like the world, basic, that world. And it was like, yeah, like something just seems a bit fishy. I mean, I guess Kirito, I don't think Kirito would be a villain, because him and Asuna were still together, for the whole 200 years. And it seemed like they were always together. And then, uh, it was just like when they bring him back, they weren't able to take Asuna's consciousness from the 200 years. But, so that guy, I don't know if he's going to be a villain or what's going to happen. Um, with them finally finding the mind, whatever, of Kayaba, I felt like that was gonna happen. Like they say in the beginning of Alicization, when he's like, "Oh, we have a third partner, but we can't talk about him yet." I completely forgot about that, and that's something the show does a few times, where they'll mention something, and then I completely forget about it because they're doing a whole bunch of other shit, and then they bring it back up, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, they did mention that." Um, so that was cool. He ends up inhabiting the robot or whatever, and stopping the oil place from exploding. The turtle. It's called like the ocean turtle or something like that, and they end up saving it, and that's cool because they had to save it, otherwise Kirito and Asuna would have died. They also set up like a bit of a romance between Kayaba's ex girlfriend and the fucking guy with the glasses. And then they kind of with the ending of what they did, I'm not sure if that's gonna go anywhere, or if he's kind of like like I said, if he's kind of becoming a villain, like he's too obsessed with all this stuff. So I don't know, but they could have. I like I said, I like how they threw a couple of the love stories in there. Something I thought was weird was the I don't know, the female knight, how she's like kind of trying to hit on Kirito, when he's on the thing, and they're all like, no, back off from him, whatever. And it seems like, once again, like she was kind of like, not completely, like I could see it being a joke, but then it's like it's revealed that it's like some fucking Naruto shit. I can't remember the guy's name. Where the person's killed, and then they have a pregnant wife at home, and it's like the guy, the commander dies, and he was the one who was with her. And they do kind of tease that, I think, like in the season, but then they do that, so it's kind of like it feels like it's somewhat out of nowhere. And then he dies like defeating the guy. And oh, another thing, I remembered this, another one of those, oh, like it happens in the beginning then you forget, is Sinon getting killed in Gun Gale Online, and she has that nightmare about it. Like that's like the beginning of the season. And is it the beginning? Yeah, I think so. And like she has a nightmare about it, and then it turns out that was the main villain guy. And and Sinon faces him and all that. I just thought that was really interesting. So that's like the point where I was like, okay, when is Kirito gonna come to? Because it seemed like everyone's defeating everyone, and it was like, okay, what is he supposed to do at this point? Yeah. So that was another thing. Trying to think what else here. Uh, like I said, Kirito and Asuna, the 200 years thing was really. I just thought that was really interesting because you saw him when he first got trapped there at the end. I was kind of like, oh, they're gonna figure a way to bring him out. And then when Asuna showed up and she's like, I'll be here with you the entire time, and they bring Alice into the real world, which felt a bit weird, not bringing her into the real world, but like how they just had this android body going around, when before they were showing like that even the second version of that robot like was super robotic, and no way it could really look like a human, especially like with how small Alice is. It was something where I was like, that kind of felt like it was out of nowhere, but it was cool. Obviously I want to see her look like Alice. That's who she is. Um, I like what they did with the AI in the real world, and how people were like, "Oh, you're gonna use it for," it's like the shit people talk about today. Um, for jobs, taking jobs, and what if they attack us or whatever, right? And it was just like Alice, you're immediately like, fuck all these people. Um, but yeah, so she's in the real world. I forget how long Kirito is in the state he's in the world, right? I forget how long that was. Maybe it was like 2 weeks or something. But it was 200 years in there. Uh, I forget. But him and Alice, by the way, they had a romance thing going on, and I don't know what they're doing with that. Like, oh, something that they do, they like a lot of like Kirito has a lot of good chemistry with I want to say actually all of them, like all of his female friends and all that shit, to varying degrees. But it's like him and Alice, they seem like they're really going somewhere with that, and I don't know if they are or not, because that's a big thing. Where it's like he's with Asuna, but it seems like they're kind of becoming friends, and I don't know, like, would they do that? I don't know, but it seems like they're kind of putting it on there where it's like it's still it's not resolved. If they resolved it at the end, it would have made sense. She's like, I love him. There's a human in this world I really love. um, and then they have the moment where they're fighting in the dojo, and she's like on top of him, and I thought she was gonna try to kiss him, and something like that. And they just had this good chemistry. Where where Alice called Kirito's dad her father, and I thought that that was funny. And something that also, like, I thought that we just see him out of nowhere. By the way, I was not expecting that. I thought he died or something. Um, I don't know, Kirito's like uncle or whatever the fuck he is. I really like, we only see his mom and we barely see his mom, and we think like he's an asshole, and he's really not. Like, he ends up not being a bad guy. Where Alice is like, he's a hero in my world. He did all these things, and he's like, yeah, he's a hero in our world too, but you still gotta do these things, and that was ended up being really well done. And I think that's almost pretty much it for the for it. But I'm hoping, I don't know. I kind of want him and Alice to get together, but I'm not sure. Like, because I don't want him and Austin to break up, and I doubt they become a harem thing. But I just feel like the way that they kind of set that up, it feels like it could happen. But I don't know, and I don't know. It's a weird thing to do, and it almost like I don't know. I feel like if they don't do anything with it, it's kind of gonna annoy me, because it's like you put effort into this, a good amount, and you basically just you did that, and then at the end, he ends up Kirito ends up getting some coordinates from, I'm assuming that's him, like that's 200 years AI him, who sends him the coordinates so that him, Alice, and Asuna can go back to the world, and it's like some fucking futuristic space world now. So I'm like, that kind of makes sense, because they went from fantasy to guns, to military type shit. I forget what the genre would be called, action adventure. So I don't know, something like that. To back to fantasy, to, you know, well, not fantasy. It wasn't as fantasy as like Sao was, I think, but it was still fantasy. Like, just a lot of the places look mostly realistic and stuff like that. Um, so I just thought that that was interesting. And like, so now it's like they got spaceships, and they got it's 200 years, so all the people that they knew are fucking dead, but they still, at the end, they have the apprentices. Like, they're not the apprentices, I guess they're descendants. um see them, and it's like, okay, well, I kind of want to know, like, especially for the lady who fell in love with I, oh my god, the guy's name. I'm like so stupid. The guy's name, Kirito's friend who dies. Because even she, at the end, she imagines him and she sees him, and she's like almost is crying. It's like, is that her? I don't know. I don't think so, because they'd have to be like, immortal. Which they did show, the knights became immortal, but I feel like that's not what they were doing. And then Kirito and them fight a space fucking octopus thing, and then it basically ends with that. And obviously, like, that didn't feel as much of an ending. Like I said, season one could have been an ending. I absolutely feel like it could have. I'm glad it wasn't, but it could have. And So with this, I just felt like yeah, okay, you got to continue. And then they're like Kirito and Austin are and all these, there's another story coming. I forget what they called it. And then it's like, but that's only they then said something where it was like, "Oh, well that might not happen." I guess. I guess that was like maybe they're actually telling us like that we might not make it at least into an anime. And then it was like at the end they had the fucking Avengers style Kirito will return. So I think it's still going. I don't know if any of the movies are set after this, or if they're waiting for the guy to write it, or what they're doing. But I don't think that this is the end, and I don't think it can be the end. With the way that they especially set up, the guy in the 200 years, Kirito and all that stuff, and Kayaba, and how they have to save the world. Like in the real world, they have to save the world because the government is trying to shut it down, which is some absolutely real shit. Where I'm like, yep, I absolutely see that. Where they want a scapegoat, and then they also want to like, do all this shit. And I was like, okay, like I see that 100%. So Alice is in the real world now. Uh, she jumps back and forth. I don't think like it would be a complete waste if she lived in the world, like the space version of the world now. Which is not space version. I just mean like like they're flying fucking spaceships and stuff. Um, but we didn't get to see what the world looks like, and I think that was on purpose so that we can see it like so the author wasn't really stuck in anything where it's like, okay, I did this, and then change their mind, and they're like, okay, well now I kind of want it to be like this, but then it wouldn't make sense. Um, because sometimes things do that, and um, so next time we're getting space, I don't know if Kirito's gonna get a mech, gonna get some shit. I haven't really watched any mech anime, so that'd be kind of cool. If he gets a spaceship, uh, if he sticks as sword in. I hope they don't bring guns into it though. I kind of hope like people still use like swords and stuff in that because then it'd be a little bit too much like GGO. Um, I wish they still had like some fantasy elements in the world and then some stuff. And I also want to see because I feel like this is the only way we'll see. I don't think like I said it would be cool, but I don't think we're gonna get a movie of like what they were doing in the 200 years. So it would be cool if we saw like from this world. They're basically like legends, I guess. Where it's like okay, they were here for 200 years. They helped shape the world. They've heard of Alice. They've heard of Kirito. They've heard of Asuna, which obviously they say like he says like her Your Highness or whatever, which made me feel like at first, which almost worried the fuck out of me that they like got separated or something. But then they kind of talk about how they were in love, and he talks about how they would have been. He wished they were brought back together, like the memory, the AI memory versions of them, and so they were still in love. I just like have like PTSD. I don't know. I'm scared. Like I'm scared a lot of times. Like something bad's gonna happen, right? And I feel like once again they they did like once again the loose ends they cleaned up with season one. I thought was pretty cool. They finally introduced who the guy was. The leader of the Laughing Coffin, which was always kind of something that they mentioned, but you didn't really know who he was. And then they make him a main villain and him hate Kirito and all that. And they explain how the word got leaked so that they ended up having to have that battle. And then I'm glad they killed the tentacle guy. That was one where I wanted him to die. I think I mentioned that in the video. I'm like, fuck this guy, he should die. Um, so he's dead, so that's pretty cool. Um, absolutely deserved. Uh, I want to see what happens from here. I don't think Kaiba's really a villain anymore. I don't know what they're planning on doing with him, but I just feel like they're not even portraying him somewhat in a villain. Like it's like he did some fucked up shit in the past, but I feel like he cares about these worlds and all this stuff, so he's not going to mess it up basically. So but I also really hope the 200-year-old Kirito didn't become somewhat evil or something, um, because it's like that's a long time. Uh, so what happened there? There's the Invincible, the comic. I don't know if they got to it in the show because I haven't watched since season one. But when Robot, what the fuck is his name? Well, I think no, his name's just Robot. Robot and Monster Girl get stuck in this alternate dimension for like, for people in their world it's like 2 weeks or something, but for them it was like 90 years or something like that. Um, yeah, so I'm wondering like that, and I really hope that that's not way that they're gonna go, and I don't think they will because Kirito's like always, the nice guy, whatever. I just thought of that and I was like, okay, I hope they don't do that. But to finish this off, I'm gonna show off the set because I've been doing that for everyone. Um, this is it. It's fucking beautiful. Oh, I just realized that the box art of him in this is like him in the catatonic state. Which makes sense, but I was like, I didn't notice that before. And then this is all the people from the world, and and then these are the OGs. These are the OGs, and you know, I'm interested to see what happens next. There definitely are some stories that they kind of have to tell now. So let me know what you think. Was Alicization like? Did you like it? Like, I don't know. If you're watching like an hour into this, you probably either like it or I'm just like such a great video maker. I'm so coherent and not crazy and going all over the place. Um, but I just think that this was good, and I think it's something very special how they were able to introduce all these new characters, and then like after that, they just basically kind of put the other character in the background, and for a while, it's just basically the new characters, and of course the real world stuff, but that's kind of still in the background, which I thought that was pretty interesting. Just like the whole hostage type shit, it was insane. Like I did not expect that, but then it was kind of like a battle of like they were locked into this room and then they were locked into that room. And it was basically just a fight to get Alice, and you know, and then they ended up winning. But yeah, I just like keep rambling. Basically, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna end this video and then I'm gonna remember something and I'm gonna be pissed off that I didn't mention it, but. Yeah, so this is, Sword Art Online Alicization, War of the Underworld. Check it out. I've explained it, but I've explained it so fucking terribly that it's probably incoherent. Um, or even if whatever, just check it out. It's very much worth it, and I think if you like Sword Art Online, well, if you like Alicization, you like that season, you will like this. If you didn't like it, then I can understand, and I see why you don't like it. Um, as for my next video, I got recommended a few videos, a few anime that's only like short anime, and I think I'll put those up because these have been long form, long videos, and I can sit down a couple hours and watch them and just get them out. Especially I forget like what they are. I added them to my Ojo, and one of them especially sounded really interesting, so I'm excited for that. Um, After that, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna come up. Maybe I'll show a new anime haul because I've gotten a shit ton of anime. Like I didn't just buy these. I bought other stuff. I don't. I don't want to spoil it. Well, not. I guess not a whole bunch of stuff. That just like it was expensive. But yeah. So anyway, this is it. This is the. That's about it. Peace.